Hi guys, we're coming at you today from my kitchen / living room area because this is the one area in my house that doesn't have a total disaster in the background. So bear with me. We're going to talk to you today about brushes because one of the most common questions I get asked is, do I need a specialty brush for chalk painting? And I think the answer might surprise you, but I'm going to get to that in just a second. When I first developed BB Frösch chalk paint powder and I started teaching workshops and showing people how to paint with chalk paint, I didn't sell brushes, and because I felt like I wasn't in the brush business, and so I would teach people how to use chalk paint with one of my expensive brushes, and they would use that brush and then they would go home and use a not so awesome brush, and then they were wondering why they weren't getting all of the awesome benefits of chalk paint, like the self-leveling properties, you know, the no brush strokes if you don't want it. So I realized that it really is important to have a good brush for a lot of the techniques, but I couldn't stomach telling people that they had to go out and buy a $60 or $70 brush. So I did start working on developing a brush that was kind of, in my mind, the perfect brush. But the answer to the question, do you need a specialty brush? The actual answer is really no, you don't. I mean, you can put chalk paint on a piece of furniture with anything. I mean, for heaven's sakes, you can use your fingers if you want to. I use a sprayer a lot of the times. There are some people who use a roller. That's probably my least preferred method. But the honest truth is, no, you don't. However, if you want all of the benefits of chalk painting, like that self-leveling property that I told you about, where the paint kind of settles into itself, you do need a good quality brush. So if you don't want to see those brush strokes and that type of thing, you do want to use a really good quality brush. So I'm going to show you a couple of the differences. I have so many brushes in my arsenal that I have sampled, and brush companies send me brushes all of the time to see if they can sell our or if we will sell their brushes for them. So I'm going to show you some of the differences. These are some of the brushes that I've used over time. This is one that's probably most common that you see, you know, that you could buy at Home Depot. That's kind of a cheap thing. The problem with this one is that the ends of the bristles, they tend to fray over time, and so that really will end up showing you a lot of brush strokes. The other problem with this one here is when you paint with chalk paint, you want to paint for the most part with these kinds of strokes, which I call a hashtag stroke, and with this type of brush you tend to flip your paint. So those are a couple of the problems with it, besides the fact that you're loading your brush constantly because there's just not a lot of headroom on here. This is another brush that you may have come across. It's got great bristles. They're specially treated and they are chisel tipped, which is awesome. However, the handle is super duper long, and when you're chalk painting, most of the things that you're doing are pieces of furniture. So you may have shelves and like this piece behind me, and when you try to get in those nooks and crannies, when you've got a long handle, that becomes a real problem. So here's another one that I'm not going to show you all the brand names because I don't ever want to talk badly about another company. I'll just show you some of the issues. So this one here is a less expensive brush, and you may see it online. The problem with it is the ferrule right here is a lot skinnier, and so you don't have a lot of bristle stability. So again, if you're painting in these hashtag strokes, you tend to flip your paint a lot more. The other problem with this type of brush, although it looks very similar to a BB Frösch brush, is I'm going to show you the end of the head like that. So that's the brush head right there. When I squeeze the bristles together, this is about the density of your brush head. And when I squeeze the bristles on a BB Frösch brush, can you see the difference? So that's one of the features of a good quality brush like a BB Frösch brush. So I'll kind of compare this with some of these others and show you why these features were important when I was contacting brush companies and having them manufacture our brush for us. So the first one is the handle. You'll notice the handle is much shorter. It was really important to me. I needed to be able to get in those tight spaces. So the handle is shorter, but also just kind of the shape of it is a lot more comfortable to put your hand around. I found when I was using handles like this or this that were so skinny, it just wasn't comfortable, especially when you have a bigger, heavier brush. So you'll also notice the ferrule, that's this part right here, is much wider on a BB Frösch brush or a good quality brush. And again, that goes to your bristle stability, which really helps for your bristles to not flip your paint all over the place, but also helps your brush last a lot longer. The other thing that you'll notice in a BB Frösch brush is these are natural bristles. So they're natural and they're chisel tipped. So you aren't going to get that fraying on the end of your bristles like you would with a synthetic brush or a natural brush that's not chisel tipped. So you've got a much denser brush head. That helps with your brush loading. You don't have to load your brush as often. It also keeps your paint more on the end of your brush instead of soaking all up into here. Because when you have paint in here, that just ends up being paint that's unusable, and then it makes your brush really, really heavy. So I wanted a brush that was nice and dense on the head. So this is the difference between a BB Frösch brush and some of the other brushes that you may see on the market. But I think we tried to design it in such a way that we could get the best bang for our buck, so that the cost is about half of the expensive brand that I was using when I first started chalk painting. And it is more than, say, a brush like this, but like I said, the density is so much greater that that's where the cost goes, is the density and the ferrule. And those are features I feel like are really important, not just for while you're brushing, but for later down the road when you want your brush that you just spent a lot of money on to last a lot longer. So that's our paint brushes. I'm gonna wrap that up, and then I'm gonna talk about wax brushes.